Hi ladies, I'm Pidge.
And I'm Mowen.
Welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast. We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hello and welcome back to the Night Shift Court podcast.
Episode 12.
Yee-hoo! I'm very excited because it's arguably one of the best books in the series.
Yeah, I agree. It's my favourite.
Yeah, it's right up there for me. I can't say it's my favourite though because...
Which one is your favourite?
The last one.
Silver Flames?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But only because I'm highly anticipating the next one.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
feel like that is going to be my favourite because of who it's said to be about.
Agree.
Yeah. So there's an elephant in the room.
There is.
There's only two of us here. So we'd just like to take this opportunity to tell you that moving forward, it's just Pidge and I. Our dearest Roz has, that sounds like she's died. She has not died. Our dearest Rozzle has decided to leave the podcast because she's going to pursue her own projects. Mm-hmm. And we wish her all the best in everything in life. She's still one of our dearest friends and colleagues, so we will see her all the time. But you won't, which is a little bit sad. And we are so grateful that she did the first series with us and started this podcast journey.
Yeah, yes, she was a huge help in
Absolutely.
the beginning and we will miss her terribly.
we really will.
Yeah. Hi, Roz.
Hi, Roz, if you're listening. She better be listening.
I'm sure she is.
You better be listening.
I'm confident.
We love you.
And we've done a lot of research now into book 2 and we're ready to go.
We really are, and we're really excited to bring this to you guys. So we hope that you'll stick around. Let's get into this.
Yeah. So chapter 1, book 2,
Yep.
Court of Mist and Fury,
Yep.
actually opens with a little snippet of Feyre's dream.
Yeah, a little
that she
prologue.
has. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's in the throne room again. She's got multiple Fae lined up in front of her this time. However, when she pulls off the sack of the third Fae, it's herself.
It's her. She's staring in the mirror.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
What a nightmare to have. And it's obviously just setting this whole story up for the anxiety and the guilt and the just general dread that Feyre has and will continue to have through this book.
Yeah. I think that it could have gone one or two ways in terms of like book 2 could have opened with Feyre completely recovered from the incident under the mountain because it does open 3 months after Under the Mountain. So, she could have, Sarah could have opened it by, Feyre being completely healed and moving on with her life.
Happy as Larry.
Yeah, or she could have sort of taken it that nothing has actually changed between the time that Feyre left Under the Mountain and 3 months later.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been taken in a darker way, which I really appreciate because I like ominousness.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
Sort of.
Okay. Let's go with it.
I received.
Good.
Chapter 1, part 1, House of Beasts is the first portion of this book, what
That's
it's
right.
called. And it opens with her essentially vomiting in the toilet.
She wakes up, runs to the bathroom, drenched in sweat, has a puke.
Yeah. She describes some of her time in the last 3 months and about how she's adjusted to her body. It's actually quite funny. She's mentions that she's broken a few vases, like antique vases and things because she's taken bigger steps and longer strides than she's used to. And
it doesn't know her own strength.
Yeah, yes, which was last book we saw that she immediately recognised that she had longer fingers. She obviously has longer limbs in general now.
We do hope that you are enjoying the titles of our episodes, by the way. May I remind you, it takes so long for us to think of them and they're always funny.
Yeah.
So we hope that you like them and the icons that go along with them on our social media. So
something we put a lot of effort into.
We do.
As Feyre is sitting on the bathroom floor, she notices or she looks at her tattooed hand and she sort of describes it again for us, so confirms that it's still there.
Yeah.
And she describes the eye as being like slitted like a cat's in the last
feline.
book. Yeah. But she said that this time the eye actually adjusts to the light as well. So like the pupil dilates.
Crazy.
With the light. Yeah, which was interesting.
Someone's
thought.
looking through there.
Yeah. Well, she suspected that under the mountain, but I think now she's just absolutely confident
She kind of knows
that had happened.
But she's heard nothing from Reese.
Correct.
Nothing from the night court.
No.
You can tell the language she uses. She's waiting.
Yeah.
She knows that he hasn't forgotten.
No.
But it's been an odd amount of time that has passed with no word, no
Correct.
sniff, nothing.
And she doesn't want to ask Tamlin about it either for fear that she would summon him,
Of course.
which, you know,
Fair.
I don't think anybody summons Reese,
Oof.
do they?
I wish.
So disappointingly, Tamlin doesn't wake up or tend to her overnight when she's having these horrible nightmares and gets up and runs to the bathroom and is vomiting and covered in sweat. And she just kind of sits there. But she does describe that she once tended to him when it happened to him.
Yes.
And he like just hulked out
Yeah.
and like turned into his beast
mode.
And that he like just prowled the grounds and prowled the manor and then slept at the end of her bed like a dog.
Like a guard. Like, how strange.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Look, we are the first to acknowledge when people have had trauma.
Yes.
Including ourselves.
Yeah.
But this behaviour is strange, even for a High Lord.
Yes.
So I think it's really telling of how plagued both of them are about what's happened under the mountain.
Yeah. There's no doubt Tamlin has his nightmares as well and is, you know, followed by Amarantha's legacy.
Yes.
But yeah, she essentially tends to him. He doesn't want anything to do with it. So he assumes that she doesn't want any tending to either.
Yeah.
So he just doesn't bother, which
My theory
the
is
emotional intelligence of men.
yeah, but my theory is that he does hear her.
Yeah. Oh, I reckon so.
And he's just like, I don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Again, like, yes, as you say, the emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Not quite there. And also, I mean, we'll go on to talk about how I feel about Tamlin in the next few chapters because red fucking flag central.
Yeah.
All over the place.
Agree. We get this overwhelming sense that Feyre is just broken.
Yeah.
So she describes herself sort of sitting on this floor in the dark. She believes that something permanent inside her was broken by Amarantha, and she doesn't think that even eternity will fix her wounded soul, essentially. So
How sad.
yeah, she kind of went through this progress under the mountain where she thought she'd be okay. She was really confident. She went in. She was definitely going to save him, blah, blah, blah. And she's just kind of come out the other side and she's absolutely traumatized.
I think it's the no Reese factor.
Yeah.
I think that she was really feeding off Reese and his hope and his
He held her
motivation.
together.
Yeah, he really he was her mindset coach, I believe.
Yeah.
And then, you know, she's just got none of that now.
Yeah.
And she gets more and more disenchanted as these chapters go on because she can't do anything.
Yeah, that's
literally.
right. Yeah. Well, she actually asks Tamlin, he goes to the stables with Lucien and they're going out somewhere to, you know, battle some sort of demon that has arrived. And she asks Tamlin if she can go with him and he says, absolutely not. I don't have the spare guard for you. You have to stay here. And interestingly, she describes Lucien as looking at her and narrowing his eyes, shaking his head and seeming to say, don't push him. And when I first read that, I was like, yeah, okay, you could definitely get that from somebody's facial expression. But rereading it, I actually realised that it might be Feyre's powers coming through because of her powers, which we learn about later. She can read or enter people's minds. So I actually think she's entered Lucien's mind and he's shaken his head and said, you know, don't push him. So I actually think he's said that in his head and she's heard it as opposed to her just gaining that from Lucien's facial expression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Significant.
Yeah.
I did not consider that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit chilling, actually.
Yeah, there you go. It's amazing what a reread.
I love
will
it.
do.
And also, I refresh my memory about how I feel about characters by listening to the graphic audio at the moment. It's really interesting hearing voices say certain lines and the more disdain you feel for the character because they've said it out loud versus like what you perceive in your head.
And Tamlin uses the same excuse over and over again about why Feyre can't go out. And it's, you know, this circle of excuses around that there's still Amarantha's beasts in the courts and that they're still hunting them and so it's not safe for her. Secondly, that he doesn't have the guards to spare her. Thirdly, that she should rest. She's done enough.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Put your hand off it. I really despise Tamlin for this controlling exertion over her. And this is the first we see of it, and it only really gets worse from here.
Yeah.
So she's desperate to go to the Fae village, the local village, and assist the rebuild, which is all anyone can talk about. They've got this rebuild that they need to do before this thing.
Yeah.
And she wants to help.
Yeah. They're all kept in camps.
Yeah.
While all the courts were under the mountain, all the lesser Fae and the ones that Amarantha didn't deem important enough, they're all kept in camp. So all of their villages were completely destroyed. So they've got a lot of rebuilding to do.
And why shouldn't she? Has she not proven herself enough as a mortal, no less? And now just because she belongs to someone, she needs to be kept behind a glass box? Like, sorry, not my vibe. Obviously not hers either.
Yeah.
And she has this unknown, untested power now.
Yeah.
Why, if you're in love with someone, why wouldn't you be testing that to empower them to protect themselves versus just treating them like they're going to break?
Yeah. And speaking of being owned, we find out that Tamlin proposed to Feyre. So it was 2 months before this chapter in the book. And the wedding is 2 weeks away from this point in time. And during that time, Feyre actually has a birthday. So her birthday is on winter solstice.
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
But she doesn't tell anyone that it's her birthday.
Doesn't she? I completely missed that.
Yeah, so she doesn't tell anyone because she justifies it by saying, one, she's immortal now anyway, so who cares about birthdays? But two, she'd already received so many presents.
Yes.
As the Feyre curse breaker, she received, multiple gifts and praises and people bowing and, you know, scraping for her. And then on top of the engagement presents and then the wedding presents to come in 2 weeks, she was like, why do I need more stuff?
I know, and fair.
Yeah.
Because getting gifts makes me really uncomfortable as well. So
It's not your love language.
It's not my love language. So thanks for my gift, by the way.
Yes, I got you one, didn't I?
But I love that.
I love to make people uncomfortable.
Yeah,
so.
you do. I love giving gifts. Yeah, receiving them I'm not good at unless it's something that I really want is from someone really close to me that I've said like, here, husbo, buy me this Throne of Glass series.
$700.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So yes, they're engaged, but she ain't a normal bride.
No.
Right? She has zero interest in this wedding.
That's right. Yeah.
But someone else does.
Someone else definitely does. So we're introduced to, I think, a unanimously hated character in this series, Ianthe. And she is one of the high priestesses. So this is the first time we hear of high priestesses and what they are. We didn't hear anything about them in book 1. So there's 12 of them in total, and they basically dictate the link between the fairies and the High Lords.
Okay.
So they're kind of like a little bit of a go-between. 12 in total who govern the priestesses throughout Prythian.
Okay.
And many of them actually reside in the Dawn Court, the Day Court and the Winter Court.
Okay.
So they're the 3 that have been, have the most priestesses in them. They oversee the ceremonies and the rituals of the Fae, record histories and legends, and serve as basically advisors to the lords and ladies in matters great and trivial. It feels like a lot of explanation for them not doing a lot.
Yeah. I mean, and how did they come to be in these positions?
So I feel like, they want to be important, but they're not.
To be fair, priestess, church.
Yeah.
It's kind of in our lives irrelevant.
Yeah, that's exactly
and
right.
You can have them or not, and it makes no real difference.
So they wear a shining silver circlet set on their head, and it's got blue invoking stones on it, essentially. And they wear robes that are far from matronly, is how they're described, that they hug the curves of their body. And there's also a panel of cloth on top of their head, which they can flip down when they want to pray or just be in deep thought, but they typically wear it sort of folded back. They're allowed to marry, dally and bear children.
Dally.
Yeah, dally.
I love it.
As it would dishonour the cauldron's gift of fertility to lock up their natural instincts.
Okay.
So because they are considered in great power across Prythian, their children are typically powerful and well respected. They often choose to control males such as the High Lords through seduction and sex. So they're religious but not.
Yeah. Well, religious but promiscuous.
Yeah. Yes.
Quite intertwined in real life also.
True. Very true. And what's particularly special, in the spring court, the high priestesses have granted sacred hunting rights for the High Lord, which we'll get into a little bit later when we talk about the tithe as well.
Oh, yes. Okay. I've just looked up some fan art about Ianthe.
Oh, yeah.
And it is quite interesting. I will insert some photos on the video here. She, has the waxing and waning moon like a tattoo on her head. So,
Yeah.
She's depicted as a hot girl.
Yeah. And she's actually the one who convinced Tamlin that Feyre shouldn't learn how to fight. So she's sort of quoted as saying, if peace has returned to the land, then why would the Bride of Spring be learning to fight?
Yeah.
So she's saying that it would cause unrest if Feyre was seen to be learning how to fight, because everyone's essentially saying, well, but we thought
we don't need to. Yes. Why would we? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tamlin is so easily
manipulated,
swayed by her.
Yes. So they're childhood friends.
Yeah. Someone who's not easily swayed by Ianthe is Lucien.
Yes.
She, try as she might, loves a bit of Lucien, and he has no time for her. No. Zero. Just on that, Lucien's voice actor in the graphic audio is hot.
Yeah, right.
Like, I have a little crush on Lucien.
Have you Googled what he looked like?
No, but I need to.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to ruin it because,
that's
in my head, he is obviously Lucien, who's like a formidable character.
Yeah. He's
funny,
one of my favourites. Yeah.
Banter. Yeah. Now has a hot voice. I'm like, okay.
He's going up the ranks.
He's moving up there.
Yeah.
He's definitely above the fucking High Lord of the Spring Court. What a douche.
Yeah. Yes.
So anyway, Ianthe loves a bit of Lucien.
She loves a bit of controlling Tamlin.
She does.
Yeah.
But Lucien has absolutely no time for her. But getting back to chapter 2 is kind of where we're sitting at. Lucien was hunted down by 5 Naga the day before.
Yes.
That they have this discussion about Feyre wanting to go and do things.
Yeah.
Now, he was injured.
Yes.
And he lied to Feyre.
Yes.
And said he fell from his horse.
Well,
and
he did.
He did fall from his horse after 5 Naga attacked him.
Yeah.
And Tamlin is trying to justify controlling where Feyre can and can't go by saying that he can't concentrate on what he needs to do unless...
Because she's in the way.
He knows where she's at all times.
Yeah.
And because he's worried about her.
Isn't it funny that in 2024, like if a man did that to us, how we would react to it?
It'd be very different because you either have the type of man in your life who will be like, okay, just does what you tell them.
Yeah.
Or you get killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
2024.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah. So with the wedding coming up, Feyre doesn't invite her sisters to the wedding. She doesn't want them to, or she doesn't want to expose them to Prythian or to what she's become. So Nesta and Elaine and Feyre's father don't know that she's Fae now because they haven't seen her since she returned. So they actually probably think she's dead.
They probably do.
Yeah.
It's been a while, right? So actually, if it's 3 months post Under the Mountain and Under the Mountain was at least 3 months.
Yes.
It's been 6 months since she left. So one of the things that Feyre's controlled by is how she dresses, which she already has hated previously. But now she's been especially coerced by Ianthe, who's the epitome of feminism and you know, that kind of behaviour.
Yeah.
So she's wearing bright dresses rather than the tunic and pants she prefers.
Yeah.
Tamlin says that sends a message across the lands that, you know, they're united. She's, you know.
She's the bride of spring.
She's the bride of spring. It's all very... not
and
her.
Tamlin buys her a lot of these dresses.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have the heart to tell him that she doesn't like them because he spent so much money on all of them, which is interesting that he has seemingly forgotten what she was like before Under the Mountain because she only wore a dress once to that dinner and now all of a sudden she's back and he treats her like she's somebody else, but he knows that.
I think Ianthe's in his ear telling him what to do about a lot of this stuff and he's going with it because he's just like, you know, he thinks that everyone who is a bride is probably going to be like this. One thing she does keep on her person is her dagger at all times. Yep. And Lucien even gifted her a belt to keep it in.
Keep it on. Yeah.
Which is actually really sweet.
Yeah.
I think.
I think
Because he knows it's
Lucian's
important.
armed her,
Yeah,
hasn't he?
he has.
Like in a subtle way, as gifting them to her. He has armed her.
Yeah,
as well.
definitely.
Feyre's accepted the dress thing to the point where Ianthe actually chose her wedding dress, and she admits that she hates it, which is the worst. Imagine hating your wedding dress.
I just think that although Feyre is finding it hard to stomach a lot of this stuff, she has more of a backbone here
yeah.
to be able to say no and choose a dress that she actually likes. But the fact that she has no fight
Yeah.
just shows you how broken she actually is. Because if this was the Feyre post-second trial under the mountain, she would have said, no, fuck off.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing that.
Yeah.
That's hideous. And I think this just proves how broken she is.
Tamlin and Feyre actually also keep their own quarters as well, which is
Yeah.
just like a little sort of bit that Sarah mentions and then doesn't sort of go into it any further. But then later in the book, it sort of comes back around.
Comes full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah. And Tamlin tells Feyre that there's no such thing as a high lady.
This scene I have a problem with, right? So they're in bed, they're having intimate time, and Tamlin is clearly manipulating Feyre through post-sex
Hormones.
and he's basically playing with her this entire time.
Yeah.
To the point where she's like not even listening because she's so keen on what he's doing to her.
Yeah.
That he is telling her a few truths about the lands and such. So yes, he says, there's no such thing as a high lady. You will be treated the same as the lady of the autumn court.
Yes. Yeah.
And I found reading and listening to this really uncomfortable because I was like, the way that I feel about the way Feyre feels about Tamlin is not that she's even mentioned that she's not aware of the mating bond having snapped into place.
Yes,
right?
she does admit that. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and she says she loves him. She's not acting like a woman in love, especially in the early stages. She's acting like he's the first person who's ever paid her any attention in the good sex era.
Yeah.
Because it's only been him and Isaac Hale, right?
Yes.
Which she had no love for. And it was just her casual romp in the hay. Tamlin's the first person who's paid her any attention, probably the first person who she's had an orgasm, and the first person who's told her that he loves her. I think this is one of those typical college type relationships, or the relationships you had when you're in college where you were just obsessed with someone who paid you the smallest amount of attention.
Yeah.
And you're doing whatever they say and you know it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I have a really big problem with this scene because I just feel like he's fully taking advantage of her.
Yeah.
And it just makes me hate him all the more.
Yeah. Well, it's the first time that it's confirmed too. So Under the Mountain, Feyre used to think that the she that was being referred to was a high lady.
Yes.
And then we found out it wasn't, and it was Amaranthum. So this is actually the first time that it's been confirmed that there's no such thing as a high lady.
Yeah.
So the lady of the autumn court, she wasn't really spoken about too much Under the Mountain, or what her relationship to the court actually is.
We don't even know her name.
No, we just know it's Lucian's mum.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Poor Lucian cops Feyre's push as well when she pushes him backwards.
I love this.
Yeah, and she doesn't realise how aggressive she was. I was like, babe, I've been there.
Yeah.
Much more aggressive.
Yeah.
Feel it on the inside. But he does make the effort to take her to the village in the end, because he can see that she's really struggling. They go to the village on horseback, and he gives a long-winded explanation around why she can't have a lot of free reign and why they have to present a united front, and, essentially regurgitates Tamlin's excuses in a different way.
That's right.
She, at the end of the conversation, she actually says to him, "Good to know you're still a prick, Lucy."
I love that.
Which is just
Such
a
a
little
good
bit
line.
of her fight coming out again, isn't it?
Love it. She's just remembered all those times that he's like, yeah, well, you didn't have a problem, sending me off to die by the Surreal's hand when you were
When I was
not doing
mortal.
what Tamlin was telling you to do then.
Yes.
And now it's all changed. And he's like, yes, because I don't want to betray him now that we've got this reset button, basically. I get why he's the way he is.
Yeah.
And I get why she's angry at him.
Yeah.
But I love their relationship.
I do too.
Yeah.
Lucian also introduces us to the TITHE, which again, Ianthe has a finger in the pie. She's the one that's actually convinced Tamlin it's time to reintroduce it. So it was put on pause. I don't actually know how long it was on pause.
I would assume for like the 50 years.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
So it's only been 3 months, but apparently it's time to reintroduce it. So the money that they actually get, or the food and the goods from the tithe, is used to keep the estate running.
Yeah.
And in return, Tamlin protects them, which I find is a bit of a cop-out because I'm like, well, what are you protecting now that there's nothing to protect from anymore?
But he's also meant to do that anyway, right?
Yes, as the High
He's
Lord.
the High Lord.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't need servants.
That's right. You have magic.
I don't like him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Understood. Yep. So the actual amount that they contribute is based on their income and status. And if they don't pay, Tamlin will offer the regular 3 days grace. And if they still don't pay, that's what those sacred hunting rights are used for.
Yeah.
That is given by the high priestesses. And he is allowed to hunt down and kill the fae that doesn't pay.
Yeah.
Barbaric.
It is barbaric. It's harsh. I feel like Feyre does very sorry for lesser fae who can't provide anything of use.
Their tithe would be smaller anyway. But, you know, it's like taxes and, you know.
Which I also don't agree with.
Yeah. Just on the topic.
Yeah.
So it's basically the old school or the fae version of the government.
Yes.
Right?
Well, yeah. Yep. And Ianthe would be
the ATO.
Yes.
So Feyre and Tamlin's wedding is now a few days away and all the guests start to arrive at the manor. As they start arriving, Feyre actually thinks to herself that she's quite thankful that she won't ever have to be High Lady because she's pretty exhausted from receiving all the guests and all the presents and all the praise and all that sort of stuff that Tamlin is really natural at.
Yeah.
And she is just like, it's not for me.
Well, he's grown up doing it.
Yeah.
She really hasn't.
Yeah.
She feels the same way about the wedding as she did the ball that her father threw her back in the mortal realm.
Yeah. So as part of all the guests arriving, Feyre actually meets 2 of Tamlin's sentinels.
Okay.
So these are 2 that we see later on in this book as well. So it's Bronn and Hart.
Yes.
They discuss Feyre's performance with the Middengard worm and they call her wedding a fitting ending. And her response in her brain, not out loud, is a fitting ending would have been me in a grave burning in hell.
Oof.
And that's strong.
The language is harsh.
Yeah. So that's how she thinks about herself.
I wonder why she feels so deadly. Yes, she did some horrible stuff that she had to endure because it was either that or she died and so did everyone else.
Yeah.
Or everyone else is just doomed to more of the same ruling from Amarantha. But I feel like the fact that she can't see any good in what she did is really worrying.
And Hart notices the tattoo on her arm, so she doesn't keep it covered usually during the day. And he asks her if she's heard from the High Lord. And she's like, no,
Nah,
absolutely not. She leaves this particular party early. So this is the night before the wedding. So she goes to bed. She doesn't even say goodnight to Tamlin. She just bails out. As she's going up the stairs, she turns around and looks at Tamlin and he's laughing with his friends. And she thinks to herself, I can't remember the last time that I laughed. This is the night before her wedding as well, which is really sad.
Alarm bells should be ringing here.
Yeah. I mean, they really were, surely.
Yeah. Do you really want to marry someone if this is your mood? I think that she's clinging on to some sort of hope that after the wedding, everything's going to change. Like she's going to be allowed to do more stuff.
Yes.
Nothing's going to change, doll.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone else can see it.
Yeah.
She puts on the wedding gown in the morning. We get a more detailed description around what it looks like and it's basically a big fluffy
marshmallow,
yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah.
My worst nightmare.
Yeah. It's not for me. She starts walking down the stairs of the manor. She starts walking out onto the grassed area and it's like almost the entirety of the spring court is there. I think it was like 300 people they said.
It's huge. It's My Big Fat Greek Wedding Spring Court edition.
Yeah. She starts walking out onto the grass and she notices that there's red rose petals, which she specifically asked Ianthe not to have.
Yeah.
As they remind her of the blood dripping from under the mountain. And then she believes herself to be too dirty to be wearing white at her wedding. And she's, thinking in her head, she's like, everyone else is thinking it, that I shouldn't be here. This shouldn't be for me. She becomes super duper overwhelmed.
Yep. Panic attack central.
Exactly. She has a panic attack.
Yeah. And she starts begging in her head for someone to help her.
And they do.
And someone does. Oh,
What
I've
an entrance.
never been so happy
Yeah.
or I can't remember how I felt the first time I read it because surely I don't think that I would have felt this level of happiness.
Yeah.
But by now you would know that the thing that we're waiting for, the thing that we're anticipating is that Reese is coming to get her.
Yeah, that's right.
And so he does.
Yeah. I remember feeling like I knew it was going to be
At the wedding.
at the wedding
Did you?
or before the wedding.
Sure.
But I didn't anticipate how close it was going to be to them actually getting married.
Yeah, down to the
sort of-
wire.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's got good timing.
doesn't he?
Yep. So he
Arrives in style, tells Tamlin he's calling in the bargain, essentially. So he's not seen them for 3 months. He's given her 3 months worth of grace. And he's like, well, you could at least be thankful that I'm here after I've given you 3 months break.
Yep.
Tamlin's pissed.
Oh, okay. Understandably.
Yeah.
This is the one time where I will allow Tamlin to feel the feels
Yeah.
and understand it because, you know, he's manipulative and he's a bit narcissistic, but he hasn't done anything super wrong at this point, right?
Yeah.
And his wedding day's just been spoiled.
Yeah. By someone that he hates the most.
Fucking hates Reese.
Out of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one person he wishes never to see ever again is here to take his freaking bride away.
Yeah. So Feyre experiences winnowing for the first time.
Yeah.
And this is only the second time that we've seen it
Yes.
happen. So Lucian did it once in her cell under the mountain.
That's right.
But obviously she wasn't involved in that. She
No.
just saw it.
Yep.
However, this is her first experience with winnowing.
Yep.
So she describes it as sort of the wind and night and stars sort of tearing at her reality.
Yep.
And they essentially step into the night court.
Yeah.
Which no one or not a lot of people have entered the night court and left with either their life or their mind intact.
Yeah. It's a pretty grim place that's described.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting about this, Feyre was begging in her head for someone to save her from this wedding. And then she's really scared, terrified to go with Reese.
The night court is what the Under the Mountain was fashioned
Based on.
So she thinks she's going back under the mountain.
Yeah.
But they don't. They go to a really high windowless building in the middle of these snow-capped mountains.
That's right.
And she describes it as like instantly as the most beautiful place she's ever seen.
Yeah.
Which is very distinct that she's describing something as beautiful, whereas in the first few chapters she's basically stopped cataloguing colour and texture
Exactly.
and all those sorts of things.
Yeah. And in the height of spring court blossom beauty.
Yes.
Like everything. And you can imagine spring court on wedding steroids is going to be floral.
Yes.
It's not her vibe, clearly.
No.
But, you know, stars and snow and night. Beautiful.
She notices that Reese's skin is now sun-kissed as opposed to like a ghostly pale colour, probably because he was stuck under the mountain for so damn long.
Yeah.
But she is pissed that he has stolen her away from the wedding. So they have an intense conversation where Reese reveals that he knows that Feyre has been vomiting overnight and that it's disturbing his beauty rest essentially, and that he heard someone begging he heard her begging someone to save her, and he taps the pupil on her hand twice. He's like, I heard it loud and clear. I'm like,
Oh,
what attitude?
obviously at this point you think that the bond is through the bargain.
That's right. Yep.
So you don't suspect anything else. But he, you know, and he makes a point of insinuating that that's what it's.
He's rolling with it. Yep.
Yeah, he's just going with that. And he wasn't going to just stand by and let someone who's seemingly miserable, and she is,
Yeah.
and do nothing about it. I think he picked his opportunity very cleverly.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
Well, we find out a little bit later more context around what actually happened from his point of view on that day.
That's right.
On the wedding day. But speaking of attitude, Feyre gets her fight back.
Yeah.
And she
instantly.
does what any classy lady who's been stolen from her wedding would do. She takes off her shoe, throws it at his head.
I just love it.
I love that it hits him in the head the first one because he's so unsuspecting that she would do that.
The shoe is the most underrated weapon in a woman's arsenal.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I'm Greek, so I can say this. We copped slippers back in my day. from
Did you?
oh fuck yeah, a slipper. It's the Greek thing. And there's memes on the internet if you watch ethnic social media influencers, they'll throw a slipper and it will boomerang it around the house to the kid who's like, ah!
Oh my God, I've never seen that.
It's so funny. I'll show it to you.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay, well, she did a Greek
Thing.
thing. She took off that slipper. She threw it at his head.
She did.
And then not only that, it hit him and he was, very shocked.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, and she was like, get ready, and goes to do it again.
Yeah, yeah.
And does. She throws it.
Yeah.
And he catches this one. But I'm like, I love that she throws the second one.
Yeah, she meant it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a token gesture.
No.
She meant it.
Yeah.
She was going to do the other one,
Yeah.
whether she was going to hit him or not.
That's right.
I just find it interesting. She's been in his presence, less than half hour, say, and she's already got this fight and attitude, whereas she is not like that with Tamlin.
No.
She's so meek.
Well,
It's
she
embarrassing.
does say that in the first book, that she has trouble holding her tongue
Yes.
around Rhys, but she has no trouble with Tamlin.
No.
So
Yeah.
it's just a continuation
Love it.
of that. He explains where her room is, and off she hops to go down to her room, and she hears a female voice saying, so that went well, which I love. She hops into bed, or she actually begrudgingly takes off her gown. She sort of strips it off herself and shoves it in the drawer and sort of tries to slam it closed. She pulls out hundreds of bobby pins from her head, which I've been
Relatable.
there. Like, hair's short now, but it wasn't always. We all know the headband headache.
Oh my God. In fact, now we just have earphone headache from podcasting.
That's right. So anyway, she strips herself off, hops into a pair of night court jammies and hops into the fluffiest, loveliest bed she's ever seen. She's woken up in the morning by the two lesser fae
Yes.
from under the mountain.
So we finally learn their names.
We do.
Yeah, Nuala and Ceridwen.
I'm so glad you said it, because I had no idea how to pronounce them.
Nuala, I admittedly knew how to say it because there's not really many versions of this. But Ceridwen, I definitely didn't know how to pronounce until I heard it on the Audible. So
Yeah.
thanks to Audible.
Feyre's tugged from the bath to breakfast, same tug that she felt under the mountain when Rhys summoned her to the balcony when they spoke before he left. And he explains what the bond is and what links them over breakfast. And he admits that he only enters her mind when he can't tell if her nightmares are real or imagined.
Yes, which I think is lovely for him to tell her, because he doesn't really need to do that.
No.
But the fact that he's actually making sure that she's okay should be reassuring for her.
And it's very telling that someone else can't even tell if her nightmares are real or not.
That's how
which means they
vivid.
must be, they must be really, really intense for her.
Yeah. He says that she's lost weight as well. But in a really concerning way. Yeah. He's not saying it to be an arse.
Yeah. And he also, just going back to Rhys's opinion, he is very disdained by her wedding dress. He looks at it and he's like, ugh.
Disgusting.
What is that?
Yeah, because he's got style.
He does.
We already know this about him, and he continues to prove
black
it.
suits,
I love it.
Yeah. So Feyre's here for the week. She's on a little holiday in the night court. He tells her that this week he wants her to learn how to read.
He's obviously knows that she's literate from the shenanigans under the mountain.
Yeah.
And she makes no secret of telling him that, she wasn't given that opportunity when they were children.
Yeah.
And he wants to help her, but she takes offense
She does, yeah.
to this.
Well, she thinks that he's got his own motivations for it, which he does, but she does ultimately agree that she doesn't want that to ever be used or to be able to be used against her again, like
That's right.
it was under the mountain.
Exactly.
So she begrudgingly agrees to learn how to read. He also mentions a few times about the shield on her mind, and that he wants her to train for that too, because there are others like him who can do what he does, and she needs to protect herself.
Yeah, I think that the first things that he is doing is trying to arm her with things that she knows she's disempowered by. And the fact that she's irate about it is concerning, because it's like, well, this is exactly what you want. You want a bit of freedom. You want to be able to go about your business.
Yeah.
You want to be able to fight and protect yourself. He's giving her all of those things and she's still pissy.
I think the first time I read this, I sort of just read it and was like, okay. And then when I got later in the book, I realised that Rhys is very intelligent in the way that he's trained her or gotten her to do things that ultimately benefit her, but that he's made himself into the villain. So he's like, well, you can blame me. I'm the one that's brought you here and told you have to learn to read this week. So she does. She blames him. Yeah. However, it ultimately helps her in the end, but you don't realise that until later on.
Yeah.
That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Join us for next week's episode where we will continue the adventure from ACOTAR's Book 2, A Court of Mist and Fury.
Whichever platform you're listening on, we would so appreciate if you could give us a 5-star review. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Night Shift Court.
I hope the night is kind.